and they're off.
Further Faster, the best independently owned outdoor store in the known universe. Whether you're heading out on climbing, paddling, tramping, or running adventures, look no farther than Further Faster for all your gear and expertise needs over the spring, because winter is nearly done. Head over to 57A Buchan Street, Sydenham, Ototahi, Christchurch, or hit them up at www.furtherfaster.co.nz. And we say this every week, and we could just record one ad and leave it, but that would be too easy. So there's more opportunity for us to mess things up. But before we crack on, we're heading down to Further Faster on Friday, October 17th for a live show. It's the weekend of the Creative Rim Ultra, so join Ali, me, and a host of special guests for an excellent evening celebrating the sport that we love with some absolute legends. And by legends, I mean you lot, the people listening. Stay tuned for ticket details soon.
It goes something like further, faster, there in Christchurch. Rocky is hairy and so is Badger. Jules is nice and Jacob is delicious. Go to further, faster now.
Oh, further, faster, there in Christchurch. Rocky is hairy and so is Badger. Jules is nice and Jacob is delicious.
Go to further, faster now.
Dirt Church Radio.
Episode 386 of the Dirt Church Radio Trail and Ultra Marathon podcast. I'm Matt Raymond.
And I'm Ali Pottinger.
And Andrew McDowell, he is with us in our hearts and behind the ones and twos editing this podcast. And I saw him on the weekend and he reckons he's out for about another three weeks.
Oh,
before his
3
schedule
weeks.
Clears. Yeah.
Oh, Andrew.
Yeah,
We miss you.
No, I've seen him. He's proof of life. He's in fine fettle. He was glorious.
Was
on
he
the
radiant,
weekend,
was
so.
he?
He actually was pretty radiant. He just finished the run, so he all the endorphins were coursing through him. But before we start, let's get into some housekeeping. Please consider supporting Dirt Church Radio on Substack. Look, we've been doing this for a long time, 8 years, and we're sharing some of the legendary voices of the trail running culture, and you'll hear that with this week's guest. We need your help to keep going. Your support helps us reach new places, share more interesting stories with interesting runners, and continue documenting the sport that we love. And we have no other we don't have a Patreon, we don't have anything like that. It's just Substack. So join our community and help fuel the Dirt Church Radio future. We'd really appreciate it. So that's Dirt Church Radio at substack.com. And if you don't, that's fine too. Pod will always be free. And we'd love to have you along. Gosh, Ali, it seems like we're in the middle of two really big weeks of racing. Love it or hate it. UTMB kicks off Tuesday evening our time. Or Tuesday, was it Wednesday morning? Because it's kind of in the evening it starts, or whatever. It's so complicated. Have you got anyone over there racing?
Yes, yeah, there are quite a few people over there racing. So, big shout out to all the Kiwis that are there. We've got, I don't want to say names because I'm going to forget someone and I don't want to, but I know there's Mark Ford, Caitlin Knox. We've got Ree. I can't remember Ree's name off the top of my head. Even Ree's a nickname now. We've got Sue Meltzer, Kathy Blade, and
Ruth Croft.
Then, I was just about to say, then on the elite side of things, we've got Ruth Croft, Dan Jones, Caitlin Fielder. Have I missed anybody? Is Katie Wright
Wright is
racing?
racing. We should claim Sophie Grant. She's doing the PTL with George. Sophie
Woods. Yeah,
Sophie,
we
Amy
should.
Woods or Grant.
Yeah.
I actually saw on Instagram before her and George had their bag. They picked up these huge bags for PTL because it's this massive undertaking, and he had Woods and she had Grant on her bag. So, yeah, there you go.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
And I mean, I said we were in the middle. It is one of the most storied races in our culture. It was Leadville on the weekend, Leadville 100, and friend of the show, dearly beloved friend of the show, and kangaroo attack survivor, Adrian McDonald, he took his third win in 4 appearances, and the other time he came second. So that's not a bad strike rate. He smashed it in 15:47.23, and then you had Matthew Zupan, who tore up the back half of the course in 16:15.25. Tim Tollefson, what a legend. He was on debut, third in 16:45.14. And Mikey Mitch. Yeah, Mikey Mitch, who'd been frothing about the about the run in 17:48:07, new 100 kpb, and I mean that's tidy as. It sounds like he had a hell of a time. He was thrown up all over the place. He got stung by a hornet on the back of the neck in Hope Pass, and but looks incredible. Yeah,
Ow.
I know, massive. And in the women's field, McKendry Hickory 19:39:12 on debut. Jackie Manard in 20:28, 37 for second, and Emma Wood in 20:33:33. So I'm here for it. I would love to go out to Leadville just to see it. I mean, it's the highest city in the United States. I shudder to I probably have to take an oxygen mask, one of those things from the Fireys climb, take it up there because breathing apparatus. Terrible. Well, look, how's your weekend been? You got up to some excellence.
I was like, I'm actually very close to you guys. I was in the weekend. I was looking at the map going, I'm actually not far from
About 20
Rebecca. So headed up, had a running camp at Muriwai, which was my first time going to Muriwai, and loved it. It was so much fun. Just Friday arrive, do a little night run with the ladies, and Saturday again run. Went for a swim in the sea.
Wow.
Because, it's tropical up in Auckland compared to Rotorua. I'm used to running in 3 degrees and a frozen ground. Like, it's like running in a freezer. And then I went up there and I was like, you guys have got this, like, tropical climate. Had a run, hung out with everyone, did some workshops, had a chat, had some amazing food cooked by Boyd from the Muriwai Deli, which was just, I could actually go through life just being catered for. That was incredible. And Sunday, little run, went and saw the Gannet colony, went to the Muriwai Deli and had the most amazing berry and custard pastry thing. And then drove home yesterday. So I was in bed at 7 with Sebastian, and he's going, I'm not tired. And I'm going, I'm tired. So, really big weekend, but great weekend, and just... surrounded by really neat people, and just a good reminder, like to take that kind of time for you to fill your bucket up again and, prioritise it amongst all the busyness of life that happens to us.
What was tell the people what it was.
Oh, it was just a group of women hanging out, running. We talked about, I was laughing about it because I was thinking, people probably question what a group of women between 30 and 60 something talk about when they're on the trails. Everything got covered. There was jungle poos, jungle wees, adult nappies. There was all sorts of stuff. It was hilarious and awesome. And and it was funny too, actually, one of the things, when I host a camp at the end of the dinner, I'll get people to go around the room and we'll say, something that you've loved or liked that day. And it was really interesting hearing some of the older ladies kind of going, oh, we felt like we probably shouldn't come because we're a bit older. And I was like, you're the reason, that you're my inspiration. Like, I want to be running like you when I'm in my 60s. So definitely don't feel like you shouldn't come. I dream to be like you. So, just lots of kind of really neat conversations and everyone kind of getting something from each other, which I know sounds a bit airy-fairy, but actually it was super cool. Just a good reminder about how important it is to connect with other people when you're out there running, because really it's mostly about the chats, isn't it?
Absolutely. It is. It's mostly about the chats. I remember Eugene had this thing where they were going out with this group of guys. They were training for some super fast marathon. It was the same thing. They just chat about everything. And then one of the guys went, look, this is so frustrating. Can't we just talk about marathon stuff or, whatever? And they went, okay, dude, we'll do that. And it lasted about 3 minutes. And then there was just silence. And then,
that was a good chat, bro.
Yeah. And then it went back to just, chatting about the world and that nice notion of connection when you're with another person.
Yeah. It was good. How was your weekend? So I know in the messaging you mentioned the words death march about your run. So tell me about your run this weekend, Matt.
Well, I had two, and it was nice. So I've become somewhat isolated, I think, with work and with everything like going on like that. And I'd said to Rebecca, and it's interesting, she finished my sentence. I was saying about the Onion that was on this weekend, which is this massive grassroots gravel event that they put on. And it's not a massive event. It was pretty well attended for a first time, but it's you can do over 70 kilometers if you want, all on gravel in Riverhead. And it's literally 3 kilometers away from my house, and if I was to choose to drive there, and it was like that notion of it. I said, I want to go, but I really don't feel like hanging out with, and Rebecca said civilians. She finished my sentence.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, absolutely. That's actually I think we're both at. And I don't know about, this isn't a, true confessions, but I don't know many other healthcare professionals at the moment who aren't feeling pretty stressed out by the state of what's happening with the bloody influenza and everything like that that's cracking on in the state of things. So it's just been a challenging time, and I'd actually gone out with a group of workmates the night before, and again, even that is like, I just want to go home and do my run. And it's like our guest, who you'll hear from soon, talked about the fact that some people sort of get slavishly attached to, hey, I've got to do this run, when in the grand scheme of things, it's actually probably better to go out with your friends and socialize and connect and, break down the sort of step out of that sense of isolation. So I did that. I went out and, but then I was down 10K or whatever it was. So in my head, oh gosh, I'm chasing kilometers, which I know is just it's not the move, right? In 2026, it's not the move, because I've been doing this for a long time, and missing that run, especially on the runner consistency that I've had in the grand scheme of things. But for some reason, it was stuck in my head. So Saturday was really lovely. Went out, and I actually did run into everyone as they were finishing the Onion. I saw Andrew McDowell. It was so cool. I don't know why I needed to say his last name. I saw Andrew is really, we don't get to hang out that much, even though we live in the same city. Got a big hug. He's in good form, as SI joints, feeling better and better, which is awesome. So look out running, because he's back on the warpath. And saw Gareth and, Harry and Benny and all my friends. That was really lovely. I was like, gosh, I'm glad I came out here, Had a nice run. And then Sunday, again, had a good run for 2 hours, and then the wheels just fell off. The wheels just fell off, rolled under the fridge, And I think what it is God, I hate talking about this stuff, but my appetite's been really, really low recently. Those who know me might say, well, that's a surprise, but it has been. I just haven't felt like eating. But I forced myself to eat in the week, and my diet is actually, I have the same thing every day at work, 24 box of Moros every
Yum.
I have a protein yogurt on the way to work, a couple of boiled eggs for morning tea, a massive salad with some protein for lunch, and then this basically a salad and some protein for dinner. We eat pretty well, but on the weekends it just goes out the window, and I don't end up eating because I'll be running around doing this, and I've worked out that I can't pre-exist on a couple of coffees and toast an avocado in the morning. I can't do it. And I think that was a major part of it, but it was nice to recognize that, and go like, okay, so this is why I'm feeling so. And then you're trying to backload gels or whatever it is, but it's just by that point, it's gone tits up. So it was a death march out, but even then I death marched the long way. I was like, I could go down there and be at the car. And I was like, no, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to try and problem solve it. I'll see how I go. So the uphill long there was an extra sort of 4K out. And I was like, I'll just do that and that'll be fine. So, it, as I said to you, it ticked the boxes. But I think also when you're having that, and we say this all the time, but it's really good if you're hearing this and you're struggling and you're feeling stress is stress. It's the same body. So if you're stressed at work, it's going to affect your running. if you're having if you're feeling like your psychological resilience is a little bit low, it's going to kind of knock you around a bit. So yeah, but apart from that, I mean, I was still out there. It was still good,
You've got the consistency going, and I think it's just some learnings, right, for next weekend. Like, get those good carbs in, Matt.
Yeah.
Carbs are life. That's so good. And I guess the other thing, that I'm hearing is, I can appreciate, I had quite a stressful Friday, and I was, and then got in the car, had a few hours of chatting with my friend on the way up to Auckland, and it's just amazing how, I don't know, talking to someone really helps get everything out and kind of settle things a bit more. So maybe also a case of hooking up with a mate and having a run or a chat as well, just to, I don't know, but you'll know what's right for you.
And it's that thing, isn't it? And I don't know about this, and if there's any other people out there with kind of frontline jobs or health professionals or first responders, what I've learned over the course of my experience is if someone goes, hey, how's your week been? I'm really cautious what I say because it can actually be a total conversation killer. Like people just don't know what to say, so they just shut the fuck up, and then you can't actually. I'm really conscious of that and going, well, this happened, and then I had to go and do this, and then this was, whatever. So, but no, look, we're building, and it could have been worse. I could have been, I could have not gone out, I could have not done everything, and so just they don't all go brilliantly, but some massive learnings. And I was thinking about, our guest, and our guest is a returning champion, and he was guest number 10. Guest number 10 on Dirt Church Radio.
That's crazy.
I know. And 300.
So crazy.
Yeah, it's legit. And 376 episodes later, he's back. The one and only, the force of nature, Bronco Billy himself, Jeff Browning. And we had a good old chat with him, didn't we, Ellie?
Oh, we definitely did. We covered all sorts of ground, just like he does.
Absolutely. I mean, and at the time, I went back and I listened to the episode 10 in 2018, and he'd just come off 3 consecutive top 5 or better finishes at Western States. He'd had at the time, I think Courtney DeWalter took it off him, the Western States Hard Rock Double. And recently, 2024, he was second at Cocodona 250, and this year did he do it again? I think he did. He did Cocodona again, and then he got an age group victory, 18:03:38 at Western States. And this is an amazing conversation. He's, if you haven't ever heard him talk, you're in for a treat. It goes all over the map, and he's so wise and so fun to talk to, and such a privilege to be, hanging out with one of the legends in the sport. So without any more buggering around, let's get into it with the one and only Jeff Browning. We have the return of the OG, guest number 10 on Dirt Church Radio, and 376 episodes later, he's back. The one and only Jeff Browning. Bronco Billy, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Yeah, fine. That's good. It seems like 8 years has gone by like that. But
I can't believe I was on the 10th episode.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't believe we've only, with slow
You're
learners.
Still
we
going
just keep
strong.
Yeah, one foot in front of the other, man. One foot in front of the other. That's all you can do. I went back and actually listened to the episode 10 in 2018, and it turns out I've got no less awkward. But I was just reflecting. You just come off 3 consecutive top 5 or better finishes at Western States, and the record for the Western States Hard Rock Double, which you still hold, I understand. And
No,
then,
I do not have it anymore.
Oh, who took it off you?
Courtney DeWalter.
Damn.
Oh, Courtney.
Bloody stupid internet. I did look. I was researching,
She
but
did. Well, for that one, that type of record, I feel like it doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man. It's just a record, right? So I think she currently has it.
Righto. But you got the Hard Rock victory in 2018.
I did.
Man, does it? It seems like you haven't, metaphorically or literally, you haven't slowed down much in the intervening years. How are you feeling?
I feel pretty good. I'm a little older, the last time we talked, but I turned Monday I turned 55.
Whoa.
Yeah, wow. Where has it gone? I have a lot more white in my beard since the last time we chatted, but yeah, I mean, I feel good. I still am motivated to like do all the little things. I think it also, I think the last time we chatted, it was only maybe 2 years into me coaching. I'd recently gone full-time coaching, so now I'm a decade later, almost. Or this year's marks 10 years of coaching, doing it full time. So it definitely meshes with the athlete side of things better than as a graphic designer and chasing deadlines. My schedule's very consistent, and I kind of can kind of manipulate my own schedule to, open up really good windows of training blocks during the week, which really, really helps. Just being consistent like that versus, some weeks it was feast or famine as a graphic designer. So it was really hard in those early, the first 15 years in the sport, trying to chase being a sponsored athlete and trying to compete and perform versus, running a full-time graphic design business that I owned. So the coaching business definitely meshes with the athlete side a lot better and allows me more gym time, more mobility time, and more focused training, I feel like, is probably a better way to put it too.
Do you find though, it's funny you talk about, you're 55. So 8 years ago you were like, 47 when we talked. And I'm back then, sort of 47 feels so old, right? You're like, oh my God, I'm 47 and it's this sort of ancient athlete. And now you're 55. So I'm 50 next year. It feels younger. And I wonder if do you feel that too? Like you feel like 47 or 45, like, geez, that's old. But 55, do you feel like in the sport, there seems like there's this sort of this feeling of walls closing in on you, right? Especially with the way that things are going in terms of all social media, everything, the speed of everything. But do you feel in some ways the sense that the walls are getting wider and wider as you get older as well?
I think I just know myself better. Every year you know a little more and you learn a little more. And I think I do feel my age sometimes. And I do feel it at times where I think the biggest thing for me I've noticed in my 50s especially is the need for mobility, because my range of motion I was losing range of motion. So I had to really embrace mobility more often and be consistent with it, which in the past I was kind of on and off at times, only when I was like, oh, I'm dealing with something, a niggle or something, or something's tight and I had to get on it. But I definitely spend more time doing that now. I do feel like I don't put on muscle as well as I used to. I mean, I've lifted my whole life, so I've always been muscular, but I feel like I've lost some muscle, or it's harder to build, I guess. It's harder to it's even harder to maintain. So I feel like I lose it quicker if I take a little bit of a hiatus for a week or two, if I'm traveling and I come back, it's like, wow, I'm soft. And I just feel like it's faster. Like when you do step away from doing something consistently, you lose it quicker, maybe. I don't know if that's it. And I'm definitely wrinklier. Everything, your knees, your elbows, hands, you look at them like, whoa, I'm getting old. When you look at me up close.
Thank God for filters, eh?
Yeah, exactly. I don't use filters though. Screw those filters, man. You need to age gracefully.
It seems like you're doing it better than gracefully. Like you're still kind of really at the pointy end of the sport, really, which is pretty epic.
Yeah, I'm trying to be.
I'm curious, you're talking about learnings, you're talking about coaching. Have there been kind of anything that you've learnt kind of from an anecdotal perspective with all that coaching experience that then you've gone, actually, I'm going to apply this, to myself?
A lot. I'm the N=1. I feel like I'm the guinea pig most of the time. I've done a lot of guinea pigging on my own self before I would like recommend it to others. But I think the one thing that I think that's helped is embracing not only strength and mobility, but also nutrition, nutrient dense food. I eat a very ancestral type diet. Or that's how I coin it, at least. There's been so many different iterations of like styles of diet that have been out there over the last, 15 years. But like what I've kind of landed on that probably best describes it is thinking like a hunter gatherer is the way I would eat, hunter first, gatherer second, farmer third. So, like in that order of what the nutrients and macros I'm trying to put into my body, in that kind of order. So like high protein, high animal products, especially grass-fed, grass-finished, supporting that because it's good for the environment. Supporting, herd animals on grass because we've lost 70% of our grasslands in the world to monoculture, grains, commodity crops and vegetables and things like that are all grown in a monoculture model now, that corporate farming model. And I grew up in that on a farm in Missouri, in the Midwest of the United States. So kind of the big farmland of corn, soybeans, and wheat, and it was a dirty model and I don't like to support it. And all that land was grass at one time with giant herds on it. And that's why I like try to support my local rancher. I try to get, grass-fed, grass-finished beef from a local rancher that's on grass, that's finished on grass. And so for me, it's a political and a voting choice with my dollars. But I also feel a huge difference health-wise. And that's something I pass along to athletes that are willing to look at it that I coach. I have a lot of 40s and 50s and 60s age, ultra runners that want longevity in the sport and want to feel good and don't want to be inflamed and, want to have low inflammatory response. They want to recover fast. And so we really help guide them in that from an ancestral eating perspective.
We've grown up, or we've been around in what feels like the gold rush era of the sport.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even if you think about, like, from when, and not to keep referencing the before time or 2018 or whatever, but, like, that was a touch point. I remember being, podcast just starting. We're just at this point where there's money flowing into the sport. People are getting big names, you're starting, and things are starting to get faster. If you fast forward 8 years, it feels like now that's just on meth. Rachel Entrekin, she's got over 100,000 followers on, and like massively over that, and gained that within 3 days of winning Cocodona. She said, like suddenly you've got X amount of followers, and everything's all about this sort of almost instantaneous, like the phrase maxing. Everything's maxed, and you got to maximize everything and maximize. How do you work with, we're getting, like you said, we're getting older, we're getting wrinklier, and incrementally, we're not going to be able to do as many push-ups as we did. We're not going to be able to do as many, our sprints aren't going to be. How do you balance that when you're working with an older athlete and everything else that we're being fed is you can live forever, you just stack this, you do this, and you'll be sweet as?
I mean, I think what I really try to impart is just finding a balance for whoever's lifestyle we're dealing with, right? So everyone's going to have a different set of buckets or puzzle pieces, right? That they've got to put together to make maximize their life. And so they may have a very busy job, or they might have a lot of kids that they need to spend time with, or they might have, have to go to, sporting events that kids are in because they're raising kids. It's like there's so many different aspects to someone's lifestyle that we have to think about all those pieces. And we also have to think about each one's a potential stressor, not just the training bucket, right? And I think a lot of coaches just look at the training bucket and well, at least I have a lot of like 40, 50s and 60s come from other coaches who like ran them into the ground because they were a younger coach and they don't have a bunch of balls in the air, and trying to juggle like, just even this podcast. Like my wife has to run my son to something tonight and we were talking back and forth. I'm like, I'm going to be on a podcast. I can't take him, so like just juggling, like running a kid across town to something and then we got to go pick him up later. Right. So like, because he's a young teenager and doesn't have a driver's license yet. Right. So like there's so many things that are like going to take time out of your life where you're like, it might get thrown on you where you were like, oh, I was planning on going on for a run. Oh, shoot, I got to take him to this event, right? So we talk about like rolling with it. Like, so not getting stressed out about like when things get derailed. If I've given you training and you can't get to it, that's okay. Like, let's just do what you can, move on. Maybe you tack on something to later in the week when you have more bandwidth, but like, and then we look at the overall volume of the week. We care about consistency over everything else. And if we can just be consistent, even if it's a 15 or 20 minute run versus the hour and a half we had on your schedule, like let's go out for 15 or 20 minutes and then maybe tack on 15 or 20 minutes to another run later in the week and call it good, right? Maybe you lost 40 minutes. Who cares? In the grand scheme, that's nothing. So we want to find that balance of good nutrition, good food, prioritizing it, but not being dogmatic. Like we don't need to do it like so. We don't have to be so over the top that we have to do it 24/7, but maybe we're trying to shoot for 80-20, 80% of the time, 90% of the time. My rule is 80 or 90% of the time. And I've been doing like this approach. It's been evolving since 2004, but really since 2016 in 2015 is when I really went to this ancestral model for the last 10 years. And I feel great. Like I feel amazing on it. And I have kind of messed around going back to my old ways a couple of times for a little short window and didn't feel as well. I felt more inflamed. I felt more swollen. I didn't recover as fast. So like and I gained weight. So I like, okay, well, I'm back to where I was because I feel like I'm thriving in that model. So I think it's a lot of like trying things and then just picking what you can do. You can't always do everything, but let's say if we have 7 things we're trying to shoot for, let's try to hit 4 of them or 5 of them, right? And not worry about the other ones because that's just stress. And then that's cortisol levels are high and then you don't recover as well. And, you can't be worrying about it. You just got to roll with it and move on.
How have you found again, you're a family man, you got kids. Talk to me about the stress of having older kids. My goodness me, I thought it was stressful having younger kids. Having teenagers and people in their 20s, that's bananas.
I actually like it.
I do too.
I mean, I would just say 15-year-old can be challenging right now. Puberty and like, you're trying to be, they're like raging hormones, but can be amazing at times too. Like, and I really I've loved every phase and I really enjoy, I still have both my older kids, 20 and 23, 20 and 24. He just turned 24. He just got done with university and will be looking for his first job this fall. Maybe moving out, or planning on moving out. And so I've really enjoyed having him in the house. There's times when there's been frustration, where you're like, we shouldn't be cleaning up after you, right? If you're living in our house, I'm making you pay rent. You're saving a bunch of money, like lift a finger. But most of the time they're pretty good. And if you call them on it, they're old enough to not cop attitude usually. They'll usually just say, sorry, I'll do it, And so I feel like maybe I'm lucky with my kids. They've been pretty great. I definitely have to give my wife some props on that. She homeschooled them and brought them up and taught them the right way, while I was bringing in, money. So, and paying for everything. But she was really, if we would have split it up, it'd be like a 90-10. like as far as raising kids, because I've been chasing a career and an athletic pursuit on the side in the early days that became more full-time, not full-time, but became a part of my income. And then that turned into coaching. And so that those two meshed and that takes up a ton of time, right? When you throw together training time to perform plus coaching and managing 4 other coaches that we have now, that, it's a lot of time. And so like I get time in the evenings with my kids and I get to see them on and off throughout the day. But a lot of times I'm distracted. I'm running out the door for a training block and then I'm back in showering real quick and back in front of my computer and working, eating in front of my computer, things like that. So, I have to give my wife props. She has really done a great job with our kids. We obviously make decisions as a united front, but and we discipline on a united front. We try not to let them like use us against each other, because kids will do that. They're sneaky. They know how to get what they want.
Well, I think it's that thing, isn't it? It's often the case, so people don't split people don't split teams. Teams split teams. And like you said, it's doing the best you can with what you have. I mean. And that's, I guess, where you differ from 99.9% of other citizen athletes, is that that's part of your job. It's linked to it's linked to your sort of income and your not notoriety, but your sort of public standing. Are you still enjoying yourself? I mean, not to say that you'd be out there if it was just like a total bore, but like how does it feel like, I don't know, doing Cocodona and then coming back for a age group record, 1803.
Well, I have to say, the 2 weeks after Cocodona, I was like, what was I thinking?
Right.
That was a stupid decision to do those 2 back to back. But I actually ended up like recovering like okay. I had some like little like setbacks like physically, as far as like recovery for about 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. But then I got on top of it and then was able to get a decent training block in before maybe 3 or 4 weeks of training before Western States, before I had to taper. So I don't know. I'm just really still love it. I still love getting out. I've always lived in mountainous towns or mountain towns since I've been an ultra runner since 2001. So I've always lived in a location where I had trails out my door, or at least very, very convenient. Like, 5-10 minute drive at the most, or I could bike commute to the trailhead, one or the other. So like I've always had that opportunity to like mix it up and be able to have this really good training ground that like is, and I think that really helps after coaching a lot of people. And I just had a coaching call this afternoon if someone's on the East Coast, Maryland. And they're like in like urban hell, like it's just concrete jungle. Like he can't even commute to his gym 2 miles away because there's no shoulder, there's no bike lane. It's sketchy. Like, so it's like, no, dude, you shouldn't commute. Cause he was like, should I commute? I'm like, no, don't commute. You're going to get killed. Like, no, you should just drive to the gym because it's safe. We don't want you getting injured. We don't get you hit by a car. So like, there's certain people that don't have that, and I have that. So I've always had this, like, I can be inspired, I guess, like to get out. It's like, oh man, I get to go up there today, because I can see it from my house. I can see Eldon, the top of Eldon, which is what you go over during Cocodona at the end, at 9,300 feet. That peak with radio towers, I can see it through the trees in my backyard. So wow. I'm like today, this morning I got up at 5:30 because I had to go to a dental appointment in Sedona with my daughter. So I got up at 5:30. I rode my bike over to the trailhead 4 miles, ran up Eldon, ran off another trail off the backside and off another side, and made a big loop out of it. Like 10 miles, 15K. Ran 15K with probably 800 meters of climbing, and like bomb my bike back with my poles, on my pack, and and like race vest on my towny commuter, and like rode my bike back, and then like showered real quick and drove to Sedona. So like it's easy to get out the door when, one, you have good weather most of the time. We live in a place that Flagstaff has amazing weather, 4 seasons, great 4 seasons, but a lot of nice weather. And, especially if you get up early before the monsoons, when the monsoons kick in right now, we have monsoons for 2 months. In the summer, it's usually by noon. It's like, you don't want to be up on the peaks where there's lightning and, things are building. But in the morning, it's bluebird. Like this morning, bluebird, like gorgeous morning. And, I get to go summit a mountain from my front door, right? Under my own power. So that's easy to get like motivated to train, I feel like. And I've always had that. And I think I'm blessed that way and I've also have taken less money over the years to live in mountain towns because I had to figure out how to make a living there because there wasn't like a major employer. I had to employ myself, so to stay there. So I think that, there's trade-offs too. I could have moved to a major city and made a lot more money, and I'd probably be sitting with a really nice fat 401k right now and a bunch of investments, but I'd probably be 20 pounds overweight and probably wouldn't live to be able to enjoy that retirement.
So you can't have it all, you mean? No, and this is the thing, right? It's exactly what you said. We keep coming back to it. It's that, and we're sort of fed this, and gosh, I sound grouchy, but we've fed this thing of you can actually have everything. All you have to do is devote every single moment of every single day to being completely locked in, and you can achieve everything. But we can't. Like
I don't think we can achieve it. I think everything. So there's a little bit of trade-offs to everything.
100%.
Every decision you make in life, there's a crossroads or a Y in the road and a fork in the road, and you go down this one, and there's consequences to going down that road. You could have gone down this road, and then there's consequences to that one, but they're different. Right. And I don't regret what I've done. I mean, I love my life. I love where I've ended up. I love this lifestyle. But it is like there's times when it's like, yeah, maybe I don't have as much retirement as I would have had if I'd chased a career, but then I might not have been as healthy either.
I mean, I'd argue you've got a pretty solid career, Jeff, with running and racing and coaching.
It is pretty fun, I have to say. I mean, I am thankful. I have to say, I am grateful for where I am and what I have, and it's not lost on me. I appreciate, like today when I'm up at 9,000 feet, running up on top of a peak. And running the ridge line before I drop off. It's like in a morning where it's like bluebird and the sun's out, and there's nothing better than being in the mountains. But I appreciate that, and I have enjoyed this life. But everything comes with cons too, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's definitely been frustration at times, and I'm sure that it's as we could probably all agree that ultra running is a little selfish, and because it takes so much time. You can't cheat it. You can't just jump off the couch and run a 5K in 2 weeks. You have to do the work, and it takes a lot of work, especially to perform at a high level. It takes a ton of work and a ton of sacrifice, and my family has sacrificed. We've sacrificed family vacations because it's like, oh, great, we're going on another vacation that's not really a vacation. Yeah, we're going to a mountain location, but it's for your race, and that's like a joke a passive aggressive joke in my house. Oh, great, we're going to another vacation that's not a vacation. I mean, those kind of things, there's cons to this life too.
I mean, there are, but what do you think your family has gained from your experiences and career and that sort of thing? What do you think, how has it shaped them?
They've got some cool, there's some cool stories, I guess. My daughter turned 10 in Paris. We got to spend 3 weeks in Chamonix, when they were younger. They've traveled to a lot of cool places because of it. There's little things happen, like I don't know. Maybe it's, I don't know. Like, I think that remains to be seen, I guess. Like what, you know, like what they really absorbed out of this.
They'll let you know at your funeral.
No,
This is the thing. This is the thing. And I say this to Rebecca all the time. You know, it's the thing. It's we all we can do is our best. You know what I mean? And like you could argue,
and we're gonna fall short as parents a lot.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I told my kids I just want you to celebrate what my life. I don't want anybody to be sad at my funeral. I told them that I was going to put this in my will. I haven't, but I told them I was going to. I say that I'm going to require you to stand up and say we are going to take a moment of silence and play "Pump It Up" by Elvis Costello, and make everybody dance. But I think that's what we should do. You know, when I die, that's my last will and testament.
I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of joy and cool experiences that have come from that, and that you want that to kind of translate to your family. You talked about Chamonix, which you're now training for TDS. Is that right? So you're going to be going back to good old Cham?
Yeah, 3.5 weeks.
How's it going? What are you looking forward to?
Oh man, I haven't been, like 2017 was the last time I was in the Alps. So it's been almost 10 years.
Wow.
I'm excited to go back, check it. After doing UTMB, I always said if I came back, I would, cause I was planning on I kind of started doing like one international race a year, starting at about 2014 or 14, I guess. I started kind of doing one every season, at least one. I did Fuji and I did Tarawara and I did UTMB and then COVID, and then I quit. I just kind of quit traveling, internationally after that. And, cause it took years for that to settle down. And I kind of got in the habit of just getting back to racing in the United States because we have such amazing stuff here. And, I have a slide-in camper in the back of my truck. So I have basically a nice apartment on the back of my truck. So if I can road trip there in the Western United States, like in the mountain states, I can, it's pretty convenient. And so I just kind of got in that habit because I'd already done all the a bunch of international stuff. And then now with this opportunity to come back, I always said if I did come back for that race, I wanted to do TDS. I just felt like it's kind of a cool one. It's like on some trails that aren't the TMB. So it's not on the Mont Blanc trails. It's only on some of them. And it kind of goes more south into Italy and then a little more west into France and goes up onto Mont Blanc a little higher. So I feel like I wanted to see those trails for one. And also, if you've been to UTMB week, I mean, think about it's so fun to watch on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the excitement and all that hoopla that's around that event. And this race starts on Monday night and you're done by Tuesday night. And then I'm there for the rest of the week to hang out and watch all the other big events while I recover before I fly. By the time you fly, you're done with being swollen and you're done with, being sore. So you're walking normally by the time you hit the airport, 4 or 5 days later. So I'm excited to kind of go and kind of re-experience that because it's been a decade.
You spoke about hoopla, and I want to ask you about UTMB and sort of any advice that you have for people around that. But do you get the sense, there's an article that's come out that the mayor of Chamonix is like, okay, dickhead, stop pushing in line at the patisserie on, I don't care that you're wearing calf sleeves, please. It's cool and it brings in money, but it's crushing the town. I think about UTMB and I think about Western states and just the amount of hype and hoopla. Is there a point where it will tip over, do you think?
Well, we're already seeing that with Chamonix. So like, that's like, I mean, I understand. I mean, I've lived in mountain towns my whole adult life. So I get that. Like, especially when I lived in Bend, Oregon, you know, we could have 250,000 people in town on a busy weekend, you know, 4th of July weekend or something like that for a town of 100,000, right? So I can only imagine a town of 8,700 having 100,000 people in town. Like, that is a strain on the local resources, right? Like food and, like you said, the rotisserie, like people fighting for the rotisserie chicken. I'm familiar with that, but you got to get there early. So like, I think that if I was a local, I would be really frustrated with that race. It's over the top. Like, I have to say, I'm excited to go back, but I've always been able to get in on an elite ticket, which puts me up in that front bullpen to start. So I don't have to deal with like being in a conga line, you know, going up the first climb. And the people I've coached who have been in the normal, back in the normal rest of the runners, like, they're like, I'm just trying not to get stabbed in the face. I'm looking at someone's spandex butt, you know? And so it's like, it's not as like, I've had a lot of people from the US go, because, you know, if you've ever raced in the US, the races are small, like 400 people, you know? And like, you might be running by yourself for 40 miles during this 100 miler, you know, in a mountainous, like very remote area, you know, where there's more wildlife than runners. And so like, I think if you've been an ultra runner and kind of like cut your teeth as an ultra runner in that scene, and then you go to Chamonix and be like, whoa, this is crazy. 2,500 runners, right? It's like a small race is 1,500 runners. So it's like, it is kind of crazy, and it's kind of hard to get used to. So I've had a lot of like US runners come back and go, I'll never do UTMB again. That sucked. You know, I didn't even see anything, you know, because I was just like in line, and half the time I was stopped in a technical section waiting for people to get out of the way. Like, I couldn't get around them. You know, it's like, it can be frustrating, I think, if you're used to a small fields like we have here. So I think there are trade-offs, but it is like an electric environment during it, and it's pretty cool to like it. The Alps are pretty awe-inspiring, and just the mountain culture, it's so different than the United States, for example. Like, there's just, you know, with all the refugios and you pop up over, you think you're in the middle of nowhere, and you pop up over and you're like, wow, there's granite counters, and I can get like a cappuccino, you know, and an omelet. And it's just like in a real cup, not in a paper cup, but in a real cup, you know, like, that's pretty, for us coming from the United States where everything's wild in the backcountry, you know, it's kind of a cool thing to go experience that. And so I always have loved that part of it, but I can also see why I've, you know, had talks with certain Europeans that love to come to the United States, because they're like, man, it's so wild here and remote, like in the mountain races here. So, you know, you're in the middle of nowhere, right? So, you know, there's like anything that's we've been talking about trade-offs. There's a trade-off there for sure.
I mean, you've kind of touched on it, but what advice would you give for people that are going to experience UTMB for the first time, and especially if they're traveling, you know, like from the US or from New Zealand, like where we do, well, I mean, New Zealand, we actually have some quite large races, but, you know, like what are your, if someone was going to UTMB for the first time, what would you say to them in preparation?
Well, I give them the warning of like, it's going to be like, you're going to be crowded, you know, in the first like 50, 60K, you know, you're going to be like, it's going to be like a conga line, and you're just going to have to accept that. And you might even get stopped at times. And, you know, and the other thing I think is, you know, the other just practical advice is, you know, just there's really cool aspects to it. So if you can go early so you can experience like what it's like to take a train up the valley and run backwards on the course, you know, run back on the course 25 miles, on a training run. If you have enough time to go there early enough that you can get some like blast bigger training in. I went there for 17 days in 2015, and it was like amazing to go. Like, we don't have that in the United States. You can't just jump on a train, public transit in the mountains and go up valley and then run a bunch of vert all the way back through the mountains back to where you started and not having to have to use a car. Like, that's a cool aspect. So I think enjoying those things, embracing the culture, embracing what you're going to experience, also getting used to like practical things, like getting used to like, the United States is kind of Wild West when it comes to like, we don't have required kits, that's different than Europe. Like, I mean, I've been training in my UT or my TDS kit, and it's just like, man, they make you carry a lot of crap. Like, it's like, wow, my pack is kind of heavy and I got light stuff. I bought the highest end, lightest stuff you can buy to make my kit the lightest it can be. And I still is like, when I put it on my training runs, I'm like, man, it's a lot of crap. So like, I think, getting them used to that, like say, hey, you got to train with your crap. It's just a lot of stuff. There's just different things, but it's cool at the same time.
That is a big thing, isn't it? We in Aotearoa, we're much more, especially per cap. So we've got this relatively smaller bell curve. Like we obviously we've got a ton of grassroots races and you're not getting huge fields. Then we've got, Tarawera, which has massive fields, linked very closely to like Ultra Trail Australia, which is like the second biggest after UTMB in the world. And we much more have that, because it's UTMB, we have that kind of more European tradition of mandatory gear. That's a massive cultural thing, isn't it? It's more that it's less of that sort of this isn't a slide. It's less of that sort of rugged individual approach, right? Like you're responsible.
Yeah, it's like,
for yourself.
Hey, if you want to be an idiot, be an idiot. And not carry enough stuff. Like, you'll get in trouble in some races. Like I had to learn the hard way because I hadn't raced in Europe, and I'd done tons of mountain races here, but as the gear was evolving over the years and over the decades that I've been in the sport, it used to be really heavy and big and bulky, and you'd have to carry a huge pack to be able to even carry rain gear, because it was coming from like more backpacking background, and it was super heavy. So like we went really light in the early days because there was no required kit. My first time at Hard Rock in 2007, I carried a Houdini jacket, like a Patagonia Houdini, not even waterproof, tied around my waist, and 2 handhelds, with the straps over your hands.
Oh, yeah.
And and a race belt, like with some gels in it. That's all I carried. And like now when I look back at that, I was like, I was an idiot. Like I've been in some crazy weather in that race because I've done it 7 times now. And there's been probably 5 times where it's like I would have died if I would have been carrying that stuff then, if I hadn't had rain gear on
handcuffs.
Yeah, so it's so weird, like how the sport has evolved, but it also has been influenced by the European race scene too. With some of our races, like 200s, have some required kits now, right? That have basic kits depending on what part of the course you're on, whether you're in the desert part or the mountain part of the course. Like for example, Cocodona. But like a lot of the 100-milers still don't have required kits. A lot of our US hundreds, it's just like, it really is kind of like, you said rugged individual, but it's kind of that Wild West mentality of like, yeah, like carry what you want, but you're all adults here. Like, and if you want to be an idiot. So that is an educational piece on my side of things as a coach, because I do have a lot of people that might live like Midwest or East Coast of the United States that just don't live in mountains, and they're just not used to like, oh, it could drop 30 degrees, in like 5 minutes, and I could get pinned down by lightning at 13,000 feet, like for an hour, like you're going to go hypothermic. Right. So like knowing that you need those kits, like there's an educational piece to coaching sometimes, especially with people who aren't used to mountain terrain or mountain weather. Whereas the Alps, it's kind of, that's one of the reasons that those you do have required kits, because weather just Mont Blanc just creates weather off the Mediterranean like that. Whereas the Western United States is a little different setup because most of the mountains are inland quite a bit, that there's at least a 48-hour like stable forecast.
Right.
In most locations. If you're like 2 days out from the race and you look at the extended forecast, you'd be like, yep, we're going to have some afternoon thunderstorms for about a couple hours and it's going to be clear at night. So you kind of have a stable forecast that you can kind of plan for because we have so much land mass and all our mountains are inland. So that weather has to get created and it's easier to predict, I guess. Whereas, I can understand an island or even something like down in like the Patagonia region of Argentina or Chile, like the weather hits the Andes off the Pacific. It just boom. It just creates weather and you can't forecast it. So you have to be ready for anything. And I think that's kind of what happens in Chamonix and around the Alps.
Different ball game. Hey, not to blow up your spot, I want to come and race a 100-mile in the US. What's your favorite? What are you recommending? Sit as an athlete. I want to do a good trail run. What?
I said, of course, I'm going to say Hard Rock, but it's so freaking hard to get into. So if
I'm not one of the 147 people getting into Hard Rock.
Hard Rock's going to take you a decade to get into if you enter every year. Like Bear 100 in Utah, in northern Utah. Great race. A friend of mine is the race director. And I would Bighorn 100, another amazing event. Very kind of old school, really cool finish line that finishes in this big park on the Tongue River. Kind of a wild course. It's an out and back, so it makes it, but it's wild. It's a very wild part of the Bighorn Mountains, and of Wyoming. What else? We have so many good big mountain races here. Classics like Wasatch 100, and I would say like Cascade Crest 100 in Washington's another great course. I'd say it has the weakest finish line because it supports it has a good heart. I would say that, but the finish line is at this like fire, like it's like a fire department that's just a metal building on a concrete pad that's right next to the railroad tracks, and it just smells like railroad oil, and it's like in this like hot gravel parking lot, and it's like the worst finish line, but it's the coolest course. It's a really beautiful course. The Northern Cascades are amazing in the Pacific Northwest, so it's worth it for the course. And I don't know. I could probably name a whole handful of races that are pretty amazing in the United States. High Lonesome is another one. It's a lottery now, but it's an amazing race. It's kind of like in the same realm as Hard Rock. It's a big course, altitude course. So we have a lot of cool stuff.
You kind of touched on it, but you're almost, I don't know if it's officially dubbed, but you're almost like kind of the 100-miler king, right? Like,
I've done a lot of them.
Yeah. Like, how many have you done? And what advice would you give to people that are new to that distance or contemplating that distance?
Oh, how many have I done? I 55?
Okay. It's quite 53? A lot.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, I've done Western States 7 times. I've done Hard Rock 7 times. I've done Bighorn 5 times. I've done a bunch, multiples. I think I've done Wasatch 3 times. The biggest advice is finish your first one. Go show up. You're gonna make mistakes, but try to get as much knowledge as you can and learn from it. We also coach athletes, don't start fast. the first third's a warm up, the middle third execute on hydration, electrolytes, and calories per hour, and then the last third leave it on the course and continue to execute. When I say execute, I'm talking about all those things. But like, really taking care of yourself, learning to like have the right gear for what the course is, especially if it's in the US. We have to like we said, it's kind of Wild West, and it's kind of on the individual to make the right decisions and be smart and what they carry. They might make you carry a very, very basic kit, like a waterproof jacket and gloves or something, but they might not make you carry a full kit, and you might need a full kit. Depending on the course and the weather forecast and all that kind of stuff. But other things I would say, with the 100-miler, you train specificity for whatever the course is you're going to experience. So if it's going to be a hilly course, make sure you're training on the hills consistently, especially in the last 8 to 10 weeks. Try to be as specific as you can. And if you can't, if you live in a location where you can't, then maybe you need to do, a weekend training camp somewhere a couple times. That's one of the things we have with our East Coast athletes that like to come out west in the United States to the Mountain West and come race some of our big mountain races out here. We have them, go to Vermont for the weekend and run, or New Hampshire, somewhere where there's mountains, or the Adirondacks in New York, or Virginia and where the Appalachian Trail is, and get on some mountainous terrain, some kind of mountainous terrain that they can train on for training camps, maybe a 2 to 3 day big block. And then maybe do that a few times in the peak block of training, 3 to 10 weeks out.
And I guess now kind of we've seen the rise of the 200-miler. What do you think the popularity is with that? And like, is there a difference? Like, talk us through.
It's so different. It's like a 100-miler on like 3 different steroids or something. It's like
too soon, Jeff. Too soon.
I don't know if you've been watching all the like dope.
Oh yeah, it's hard to get.
Oh yeah, we have.
I'm on prednisone at the moment, right? So I've got Bell's palsy. I'm on prednisone at the moment, and I mean that's why I didn't do Badwater, because I didn't want to get accused of. It's crazy. Yeah, sorry, that was a diversion.
Yeah, it's crazy right
Continue.
now. I just don't know if social media is the place to have this discussion, right?
Are you telling me?
I think a long form podcast in person, right, is probably a better setting, right? Yeah. So you can go back and forth and be respectful to someone. Comments, like people are like, when you don't have to face someone, 100%. Like it's just like people can be mean and stupid and petty, and that's why aren't going to see me comment on anything, because I'm just like, I'm not going to engage there. That's a bad place for engagement. I think the person who's doing the best right now is Zach Bitter, and he's just doing education. Like if you follow his feed on Instagram, he went to educational posts. It's like, boom, do that. Like just educate the public on what the criteria is and what the rules are. And that's a really good place to start. And that way there's no like debating really. It's just talking about the rules. So I think that's a good place to be. So sorry to get off on a tangent there.
Oh no. Look, I listened to Jeff Garmire's conversation with Sage Canada. Sage has been on this podcast, but he's been on this podcast, and I was out for a run. I was listening. I was like, man, this is a really nuanced, reasonable conversation, and it makes sense, and it's polite and respectful, and I can get behind that. And then you see the comments and just like, oh.
But what about your boy Scott Jurek?
Your boy Scott Jurek, I love. Now that's how social media should be used.
That's truth. That's just pure truth.
Oh my gosh! And being friends with actual Scott Jurek, it's really fun to have conversations about, because he actually, like, at first he had to tell the person to like, hey, you need to make sure this is a listed as like a parody account because people thought he was doing it.
He's
And he goes,
shouting it over the supermarket.
I can't have people think I'm doing this. So it's been great because I told Scott, I'm like, dude, you haven't raced since like 2013. And like this is keeping you relevant without even having to race. Like you're in front of everybody every day in their feed, just reminding you of your name and you're a legend. Like it's just the gift that keeps on giving. Because it's a fanboy account. It's so amazing. I need somebody to start a Bronco Billy account like that.
Your boy Bronco Billy.
Your boy Bronco Billy. Who's going to do that? That's so great.
I thought that was amazing. Scott's Satisfy aid station. That was just so class. Like he did that so well at Western. That was the brilliant with the cut with the tassel shirts and everything. That was
They put on that's the whole Ashland crew. Yeah. And it's, I know most of those guys from my Oregon days. And so I know almost every single person working that aid station. So it's a great aid station to come to. I'm always in a rush through that one, though, because you're always racing. And it's like at mile 90, but great aid station for sure. And back to your question on 200s. I'll steer us back.
Thank you.
I think the hardest... I think the hardest thing is this multi-day thing is just really I have a love-hate relationship with this multi-day thing. That's why you only see me doing one every 2 years, because it's just like I feel like I get beat up so bad that I just am not ready to perform again for a while, or I feel like I'm not at 100%. Like I wasn't at 100% at Western States. By the time I show up there, I feel like I executed as best I could on the day based on it being 7 weeks after Cocodona. But it's still, I could feel Cocodona. I could feel the lack of specificity training for Western States, because every other time I've come to Western States, I've come in there like trained, ready to race, specific, fast. If you give me a road section, I can turn it over. You give me a mountain section, I can descend fast. If you give me a climb, I'm hiking hard and I'm running everything I can. Whereas, a 200 plus, you're hiking everything with a heavy pack. You're slow. You're just like, you've worked your slow twitch muscles into the ground. And so you're so wired that way that it's hard to be fast. And I think that's where like the 200, I think too, it takes it out of you. It's kind of exponential. I'll give you a real hard number just to illustrate this as a coach. And this is on myself. If you compare Cocodona, which I was out 3 days, 3 nights, and then Western States, I finished before midnight, right? Finished like 11. So it's a 18-hour race, right? Versus a 71-hour race, which I have run Cocodona at 60 hours, which is 3 days, 2 nights. But still, it takes 12, at least 12 days for my HRV to come back to normal baseline after after Cocodona, and it only takes 3 days after Western States. So 4 times longer. So I think that the lack of sleep is a factor. Is one of this, just missing multiple nights of sleep, because the front of the pack's going to miss 2 nights of sleep, and the back of the pack's going to miss 5 nights of sleep. And so it's exponential on how much sleep you lose. And then also, I think the other thing that's a little, you asked about that being popular or get its popularity rise. I think it's the way it's become kind of like, well, I would say Mountain Outpost is like pioneered live feed with Cocodona. It's really like put Cocodona on a pedestal. It's put Cocodona into the mainstream ultra running. And people are like, ooh, I want to sign it because it looks romantic and looks amazing, right? And but it is pain and suffering like you've never suffered before. So one of the things I told this after the race to Jamil, we always go have brunch after the last finishers come in the golden hour. And about an hour later, we go have brunch together. This has become like a tradition. over the years since Cocodona started, because I've been here every year that Cocodona has finished in Flagstaff since its inception. And one of the things I talked about, what I was lamenting to him, and I was like, dude, because of the live feed, it has made it so romantic to people that they're going and signing up before they've even done 100. And it's like, they're coming to me for coaching and going, hey, I signed up for Cocodona. I'm in Cocodona. And you're like, how many hundreds have you done? None. What? Like, I'm almost like, are you kidding me? Like, you need to have 500 finishes before you go sign up for a 200. Go figure it out. Like, figure out your nutrition, figure out your feet, figure out chafing, figure out like all the little things, figure out how do you deal with bad weather? Because in 100, you only have to be out one night, right? But in a 200, most people are going to be out a minimum of 3 nights, and most are going to be out 4, most of the pack. So like, that's a big sufferfest if you don't know what you're doing. And so there's a learning curve, and there's a learning curve to hundreds. And that's why, like, in the early days, we weren't seeing this on social media, right? We were being mentored by a local 45-year-old dude who's been doing it 15 years, and he takes you under his wing and shows you where all the cool routes are, because there isn't any like GPS and there isn't like GPX routes. You have to go know the turns and like be with this guy under his wing for a while before you're let go free. And he tells you all these like hacks, and you learn them, right? And then you go and he also mentors you in like, okay, first do a 50K, then do a 50 miler, then do a 100K, then do a 100 miler, right? Build up. But people are just like signing up for a 200 and they've only done a 50K, you know? And so like that part of the sport, I think is I don't like personally. I just think it's like you're setting people up for failure, and you're setting them up just to suffer when they don't need to. They need experience. Like I said earlier, it's not like the couch to 5K that you can do in a month or 3 weeks or 2 weeks even. I know people have jumped into 5Ks with 2 weeks of training. You know, I've done that myself before I was in the ultra running. So you can get through that in a 5K, right? But in a 100 miler, you're not gonna make it, you know, without the training and the work. And so there's this big learning curve that used to be mentored, and that was the gatekeepers. The mentors were the gatekeepers to this, right? And now it's just romanticized, and I feel like that's probably the downside of social media and live feeds. And I've been encouraging, with now that that Cocodona is a lottery, I've been encouraging Jamil to like instill and Steve to instill. You have to finish a trail 100 under the cutoffs to have a qualifier to get in the lottery. I think that's safe. In the long run, I think it's smart. I think it's safe. I don't think anyone should be signing up for a 200 before they've finished 100. And I would argue you probably need 4 or 500s under your belt before you sign up for a 200.
I think that's really good advice, and I'm totally on board with you about having kind of qualifiers in place and standards or examples that people go, oh, okay, this is kind of the right way to go about it. But I also know and can probably speak from experience, and probably for all of us, that there's been an element like when you get into running or ultra running, there is those kind of like learn the hard way sort of experiences, whether it's pushing the distance or whether it's being out in weather that you weren't prepared for or something like that. Like, have there been some times, like probably earlier in your career, where you've learnt the hard way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it was in hundreds where it was only one night of suffering. And I probably, you know, like I wasn't putting myself in major danger, right? Mm-hmm. I was putting myself in danger, but not life-threatening danger, so to speak. And I think that you could put yourself in pretty bad space in multi-day. I I think it's just it's a different beast, right? Whether it comes to like whether you're hyponatremic and not enough sodium, which then you're going to have a seizure and die, on the course, like, or not knowing what to do around wildlife. Like, there's all kinds of learning curves that, like, I feel like you should like go cut your teeth in shorter ultras and get experience and build confidence. And also like, and that is not to say that we can't go jump in something and learn from, like, like have a bad experience and learn from it. Yes, you should do that. But I feel like, it should be a stair step. I mean, that's how I coach it. That's how I learned personally. And I learned through some bad experiences for sure, and some hundreds. But it took me 5 or 6, 700s before I made stupid like where I was like, whoa, I could have died there. That was dumb. Oh, I need to carry more gear. That'd be smarter, And so I think, the consequences are less in 100 versus a 200 or 250.
I don't think that, you think about and I wonder if it's this next step we saw during the pandemic, especially when people were, in the early stages inside a lot more what are they doing? They're consuming a lot more media. We saw the explosion of 100-mile races, and especially down here, there was all these, it was the same sort of thing, people jumping into 100-mile distances from the jump. This is what I'm going to do because I've seen a Western States video, or I've seen a Tarawera or an Ultra Trail Australia, whatever it was. But for me as well, it's that for this, it's a relatively privileged sport, right? You can't. There is a limiting step to entry is this stuff costs money, and if you are non-sponsored, like the outlay for, the spend we talked about at the start with your family spend, with your, travel, training, gear, and then you get there for a week, and maybe you don't execute because, like you said, you 5 days without sleep and you're bored out of your skull and, chafed to bits or whatever it is. That's a lot of risk that people put themselves into as well, I think. Yeah.
And it's very, I mean, then you're walking, you have like wasted a lot of money. And I would say, one of the best things that ever happened to me in the early days was I learned about hundreds, Western States 100 specifically, before I even knew about ultras. Like, that's how I learned about ultras. I had a friend and I had got hold of a 1990, I think it was a 1998 or 99 documentary on Western States 100 that North Face put out. And, it had Dean Karnassus in it and Topher Gaylord, and like it was like the Montreal Patagonia team and was in it, and North Face athletes were in it. But it made me go, oh, being an adventure person, I was a climber and mountain biker and backpacker, and I always ran, 3 days a week or 4 days a week for 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes with my dog, that kind of thing. But it was like a side fitness thing. In addition to all the other things I was mainly doing, I mainly saw myself as a mountain biker and a climber. And so, but for me, that adventurous spirit was like, ooh, I want to do that. I want to do that 100-miler. So I can understand the mentality for sure, because I felt that the exact same thing back in 2000 when I learned about it. At that point, I hadn't run a marathon. I hadn't even run a half marathon. I'd run a 5 and a 10K. And I was like, hadn't run any ultras, and I wanted to sign up for Western States 100. And then I found out that there was a lottery and that you had to have a 50-mile. Back then it was a 50-mile qualifier. Now it's 100K, but back then it was a 50-mile qualifier, and the lottery's in November for the June race. And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't run a 50-mile. I haven't even run a half marathon. Like, oh, I got to go like do all this other stuff before I could get to the start line of Western States, which took 2 years. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Had I gone and signed up right then, I would have not finished, and I would have suffered, and I probably would have walked away from the sport being like, this is stupid. But instead, I had this opportunity to go, okay, in 2000, I ran a half marathon, a marathon, and then I like piggybacked that training to run a 50K in the spring of '01, and then like did another 50K, and then did a 50 miler at the end of the summer as a build to get my qualifier, got in the lottery. Then the next year did 100K as a build, 50K, 100K, and did the 100 miler. And I had a successful, for that time in my career, of like just getting into ultra running. I was only the second season in ultra running, and I ran a sub 24 hours barely at Western States, like a 23:38. And it was the best experience though, because even though I had bad chafing and I hadn't learned that part yet, and I hadn't, and I had some GI stress and that kind of stuff, but I finished under 24 hours, got that silver belt buckle, and that hooked me on the sport for the rest of my life, that moment. And I feel like some people are probably like shooting themselves in the foot, so to speak, because they're jumping ahead. It's like jumping in line when you haven't earned it yet. And you need to go earn it. Like, go earn it. Like, make mistakes, smaller mistakes. Learn from them in a 50K. Learn from them in a 50 miler. Learn from them in a 100K. Learn from them in a couple 500 milers. Then sign up for Cocodona, right? Like, if you do that, you're setting yourself up for like, one, to really embrace and enjoy the sport, but also you're going to suffer no matter what. Like, we always joke with athlete. Well, I joke in a semi-serious way. We're like, if we talk about, like, as a coaching staff, we say, don't take ibuprofen, right? Or NSAIDs, right? Because it's really hard on your, really, really, really hard on your kidneys. And so, like, don't take them during races, right? Or long runs or whatever. And we say zero tolerance on that. Don't do it. Like, and my kind of joking argument for it is like, part of this sport is suffering, and part of it is like pushing through pain. And if you can't handle that, you probably should find a different sport. And I think that's, even though I'm jokingly saying that, I'm kind of being honestly true about it too, right? Like, we need to embrace this sport, but also like do the work and build up to like these different distances, because they're crazy. Like 250 miles is insane. And I know I've done it a couple times, and I've done 490 mile Colorado Trail, but it's like, they're crazy. And it's like, I mean, one of my favorite analogies from like when someone says, do you think they're good for you? I'm like, well, I feel like, it's like if you're a cat and you have 9 lives, you've like killed 3 or 4 of them, and you're not getting them back. So like, you're burning some matches, and I'm too old. Like, at this point, I'm almost to the point where I just like hundreds. Like, I don't know if the 200 is my thing. I don't know. The puzzle is intriguing. Like, putting the puzzle pieces together and trying to like get that thing where you perform all the way to the end, like without a lot of major issues. Like, I still haven't put together a strong 200 plus. Like that performance hasn't shown up yet. The last third I haven't figured out yet. And so that puzzle piece intrigues me. But also there's a part of me that's like, it's not good for you. It's so hard on you to go without sleep. Like, I'd much rather fast pack and sleep for 10 hours and fast pack and sleep for 10 hours.
Get a cappuccino in a real cup.
Yeah, exactly. A cappuccino.
It's that thing. I will admit, Jeff, I wasn't ever a live stream person. For whatever reason, I stumbled upon the Cocodona live stream this year, and while I was at work, I had it minimized on my second screen, and I saw you coming through. I think you were leaving Whiskey Row, and the live stream, and you looked like you were quite stiff. You'd had to sit down, and the comment was, someone wanted the live stream people. They obviously know you and your pedigree, and the someone said, "Oh, he looks a little bit stiff." He look, and it's that thing, isn't it? Like, this is Jeff Browning, who looks like he's in discomfort, and the dude went, "Oh yeah, look, he knows his own body. He'll be fine." And but it's removing that notion of any kind of, you don't want to get too serious about it too. Like, any kind of pain is negative. Like, of course, that sort of like, no one goes, "Hey, this sucks. This will hurt. You will hate your life. You'll question your life choices." And I don't reckon we sort of talk about that enough as being a part of what the sport is.
Yeah, we see the romantic side, but we don't always talk about like the pain cave you're in a lot in during the race, like the discomfort and like, you know, but I think that's what attracts me to this sport too, is like, because the for me, someone was asking recently, I don't remember who it was, but they were saying like, why do you do this? Why do you go suffer all the time? I'm like, well, it's only during the races that you really suffer. It's like, I don't really suffer in training. Like I go enjoy training. I get stoked to go run, you know, a 40K in the mountains, right? On the weekend. Like I'm stoked to go do that. But it's like, yeah, I might be stiff and tight afterwards and walking around slow and kind of lazy and like not wanting to get off the sofa. But like, but I enjoy the time out there, you know. I don't suffer that, you know. You might suffer a little if you like mess up, like, oh, I didn't carry enough liquid or something on a hot day. But, you know, you learn from that too. But I do think that the races are the challenging stuff. The races are where we go truly like challenge ourselves and learn something deeper about ourselves, you know? I think it also teaches a work ethic because you have to go train regularly. You have to be consistent and you have to go do the work like we've talked about. But, and so I think there's a good aspect on that side of things too. But like we do suffer in the races, like especially the long races, you know, you're going to suffer some. You're going to have a really low and you're going to have a really high. But you're going to have and everything in between. But it is part of the sport.
I wonder if there was like some sort of, I don't know, like I was just thinking about, you know, I was watching Rachel's finish, right? Comes across and everything, so, and everyone, and it looks great and it's kind of staged. If you could have a gel that would replicate how much pain that woman was in at that point, would anyone ever do it? And I wonder, or, you know, like if you could actually feel, like I'm feeling great as all the endorphins, but this, you know, maybe that, I don't know.
She nailed it.
Sell. Yeah.
It was awesome to watch.
Yeah. That was a
like
masterclass.
what a performance. And you know, being in this sport for 26 years and having a lot of good performances over the years that I can really like look back on and go, yeah, I nailed that one. But I have to say, where the ones where they just go like just like clockwork, those don't happen very often. They don't, like, I kind of said jokingly, like, enjoy it because it may never happen again. You know, that kind of a performance, like in that setting, on that stage, like hopefully it will for you, you know, and hopefully it will in other races, but it may not, you know, like we've seen a lot of, like, I've been in this sport a long time. I've seen a lot of people come and go, and like, you know, big, bright, shining athletes come into the sport. And then like 2 years later, it's like, who is that? What's their name? You know, they're gone. Never to be heard from again. So Ryan Sands and I had this discussion at Tarawara because we all were like met up, like a bunch of athletes. Like I can't remember where it was. It was like there's like a barbecue or something, and we went.
You would have been there, Ellie.
Yeah.
So we were walking around, and the two of us kind of he had just had his son, and so we were talking about parenthood, and we kind of like latched onto each other, and we're talking together. And we started talking about because he at that point had been in the sport like 15 years, you know, and and I'd been in it like 18 at that point or 19. And we were talking about all the people we've seen come and go, like all these, like the next new fast person, you know, and then they're gone in 3 years, you know, and never to be heard from again. Like you never hear their name again. So it's just like, this sport can really like chew you up too. And that's another reason why I kind of guess I'm being kind of hardcore on our earlier discussion about, you know, doing the work and building up to these distances, because otherwise you're just going to like injure yourself, or you're going to get spit up or chewed up and spit out. And I like to see people enjoy this part of the sport and like really become a lifestyle sport. The community's great.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Look, Jeff, thank you for your generosity in speaking to us. It's so good to catch up. It's great to see you're as stoked as ever, if not more stoked, wiser, still killing it. Have an amazing time at TDS. And last time we asked you if you had a greatest run ever. Have you had an additional greatest run ever in the intervening 8 years?
I mean, I have to say I live 90-minute drive from the Grand Canyon. And so I have to say some of my best experiences, adventure running in the last 5 years have been in that big canyon. I think since I moved here in the last 5 years, I think I've done 13 rim to rims. So I really like the canyon.
It's a bucket list.
It's so amazing. Honestly. It's so crazy and big and it's just such a different world. But so that's probably my favorite, if I were going to pick something. I would say that I like to put together a lot of adventure, big adventure running sometimes. And so some of those adventure runs are pretty special, I'm getting ready to head out next weekend for 3-day training around Aspen, Colorado. A friend of mine lives there, and we're going to do 3 big days. And I'm looking forward to doing the 4 Pass Loop outside of Aspen, which is kind of a classic, 28, I think it's a 28 miler with 3, it hits in four major passes near the Maroon Bells. So I'm looking forward to that, hopefully classic. So that might be my list next time. But the Grand Canyon's definitely up there.
Awesome. Well, look, let's not wait 8 years till next time. And thank you again so much, and good luck for TDS.
Yeah, giddy up.
Giddy up indeed.
Yeah.
I like it because he's so serious. He he's so locked in, and when he's talking and you're tractor beam it in there, but then he, when I said I didn't do Badwater because I was on prednisone, and he giggled. That's really sweet. He's got that I like how he has that sort of that humor too. And yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You said about at the top, you were talking about the women, how in your 60s you want to be doing that, and certainly I've got 5 years to do 100 milers and win top 5 finishes at Western States to get to his level. But it does feel the older you get, the less old he felt. You know what I mean?
He just seems the same, right? Yeah. I met him in, I don't even know what year he came out to Tarawera, but
17
I feel like he
18.
He hasn't aged.
No,
he's just still same old Jeff. Meanwhile, he's probably who's that?
And as we speak, he will be doing, or as you're hearing this, he'll be doing TDS.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. All right. Well, look, we better start packing for Australia. So if you are in Katoomba this week, come out. So we're going to be at Tempest on the Thursday, doing a little talk with Professor Dom Rowe. Disco Dave will be there, Matt Pridham, all that. And then we will be out and about running up some stairs with all you legends on the Friday, Saturday, and we can't wait. So come say hi, come chuck some money in a hat against MND. It'll be really good. Or if you're in the area and you're considering registering, register for the event and get after it. We can't wait to see you there.
Or even just join us at the post-race party at
Mountain Culture.
Mountain Culture on the Saturday night. $2 from what were the beers called?
Frothy Finish or something like that, or Fiery's Frothy Fantastic.
$2 from each one goes to the cause as well. So we'll try our best there. I might donate $6.
$6. Slow down, Tiger. I looked, and the hotel that Rebecca, yourself, and I are staying at is on the same road.
Yes.
As Mountain Culture.
Yeah.
So I was like,
yeah.
That'll be.
We can just crawl home.
Yeah, I will also donate $6. Dirt Church Radio is presented by me, Matt Raymond.
Me, Ali Pottinger.
And our old mate, Andrew McDowell. We're on all the podcast platforms, so follow, and give us a rating. It helps.
We're on social media at Dirt Church Radio, email at dirtchurchradio@gmail.com.
Now don't
And sign up.
every week. 1 week we'll get it right. Okay, go.
Remember to sign up to our Substack for a weekly newsletter and aid station podcast.
Now don't forget to write in with your greatest run ever. If you'd like to, they've dropped off for the last couple of weeks. We're okay to bring them back. In fact, we should run a poll. If you want to hear them, we'd love to read them. Send them in, dirtchurchradio@gmail.com.
And thanks to our supporters, Further Faster, and our Substack subscribers in the DCR aid station crew.
Stay tuned for our show in 2 weeks when we have another great guest lined up. And next week for the mighty DCR aid station, Matewa.